Welcome to the next episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Generation X tournament here on the HomeBoiz channel. Today we're going to have Brron, the Mad King of Dark World, going up against Mr. Stein. Now, Brron is actually a dual monster spirit. Over here you can see this is his card, and the Dark World deck is a deck full of lots of Dark Fiends with all sorts of different levels and stat lines and whatnot. And their whole gimmick is that when they get discarded by a card effect, they get to activate their abilities. A lot of them special summon themselves, but lots of the lower level monsters actually do something else. Just different from monster to monster. But typically, yeah, they summon themselves out when they get discarded by a card effect. And that's important because you have cards like, hey, discard one card in your hand to activate me. That's not a card effect, that's the cost in order to activate something. So things like that wouldn't work on a deck like this. But to go over some of the important monsters here, we have both Silva and Gold, the Warlord of Dark Lord of... We have Silva, the Warlord of Dark World, and Gold, the Warlord of Dark World. These are two 2300 monsters who summon themselves. Then you also have, Brron himself. He can let you throw away a card from your hand whenever he does damage. You have Ceruli, the Guru of Dark World, and this is a really interesting card to work with because when he gets discarded, he special summons himself from the graveyard to your opponent's side of the field in defense mode. And then from there, you're forced to throw away a card in your hand. And the reason that that's important, that Ceruli summons himself to the opponent's field, is because there's a lot of these Dark World monsters who have a second effect if your opponent is the reason that they got discarded. So, for example, Gold special summons himself. But if he was also thrown away because of my opponent's card effect, I get to destroy 2 cards on the field as well. The boss monster that Brron had, I'm running 2 copies of it. It's Rainbow Overworld of Dark World. This was his boss monster, and it can only summon itself if it's thrown away by an opponent's card effect. So really, Ceruli is the combo right there. And whenever it does come back with its effect, you can choose either monsters or you can choose spells and traps, and you destroy all of those on your opponent's field. That's like a one-time thing there. The true boss monster of the Dark World deck, everybody knows, is Grapha, the Dragon Lord of Dark World. He can summon himself for free from the graveyard just by sending any Dark World monster back to your hand. And if he does get discarded, you can destroy a card on the field. He's a really great monster with 2700. The field spell here, Gates of Dark World, is also fantastic because it gives all of your Fiend monsters 300 attack and defense. Then you can also banish a Fiend from the graveyard and throw away a Fiend in the hand in order to draw a card. That way you're helping get off a lot of your Dark World effects. They did play this Wicked Cannon card. The fusion monster that Brron used this with, it doesn't really exist, and I tried really hard to program it. This and all of the spell cards involved with it do absolutely nothing. But just so you know, basically you play this, and every time I take damage, I can throw away one of these spell cards, and literally nothing else happens since I don't have a fusion monster for this deck. You also have another part of a deck that works really well, and these monsters are called the Layer of Darkness monsters. Basically how they do that is they all have effects that say like, hey, tribute a monster or tribute 2 monsters to activate this effect. And all of them have this. Malice Lady, Lilith Lady, Darkest Diabolos, they all have an effect like that that says, hey, tribute something to activate me. And their field spell says, hey, all monsters on the field are dark monsters. When you use an effect that tributes something from the field, you can tribute a dark monster on your opponent's side of the field as well. That's why I can only put 1 copy, and that's also why this deck doesn't run any terraforming. The side deck is probably one of the most problematic decks in this entire tournament. Let's take a look at his opponent. So Mr. Stein was a professional duelist who was sent out. He was like an episodical character kind of thing, Again, his deck was very short monster-wise. It was mostly spell cards with a couple of different traps, and it focused on a very interesting strategy. The star of the deck is Scab Scar Knight, and basically he can't be destroyed by battle when he's in attack mode, I think. And after he battles an opponent's monster, at the end of the battle phase, you get to steal all the monsters that it battled, like permanently, like it gets a counter on it. He can also negate effects that increase life points, and the reason that matters is because Mr. Stein also played a couple of different burn cards. So Scab Scar Knight will negate your ability to sort of counter that with healing cards. When he dies and you have this trap card, Scab Scream, it will transform him into Scar Knight, and then Scar Knight becomes a monster who also inflicts lots of burn damage. So Scar Knight can only be summoned with this trap card here, and you can tribute him to destroy every single monster on the field, and then you do damage to both yourself and your opponent for every single monster times 500. So it could be really, really deadly. It could be a card that ties a duel. Hopefully we don't have to deal with more of that, because that Chaz duel was ridiculous. You have one MST because everyone has to have one, or all of these cards just do effect damage one way or another. So there's that. Same thing with the side deck. Every single card in the side deck is just an even better card to do effect damage with. So that's Mr. Stein going up against the Dark Worlds. Let the duel begin. Duel 1 between Brron and Mr. Stein. Mr. Stein's going to be going first, and he's going to activate Final Flame to inflict a quick 600 before passing turn, because he actually bricked really, really hard. There's only, what, like 10 monsters in this deck, so you have a 25% chance of getting one monster in your opening hand, which is really, really terrible. Then, you know, on this side, Bron's going to actually start with Cobalt, and I believe Cobalt can do a search effect by tributing himself. Or he recovers from the graveyard, something like that. But here's the Gates of Dark World just to give it a tiny little boost. So he's going to swing for 600 as well before passing it back over to Mr. Stein. It's kind of hilarious how that works out. MST to get rid of the field spell because it can be very problematic, and it looks like he's going to try to bluff for a while. Not that it matters too much. Brron actually managed to get the Wicked Cannon out, so you know, if he starts taking more damage, he can start milling those spells from his deck just to make his deck that much faster. So there he goes. Cobalt sacrifices itself to get any Dark World card from your graveyard, so he got the field spell back, and he's going to use Charge into a Dark World. So not only is this going to revive Cobalt, but it's going to throw away a monster in his hand. He throws away Gold, who's going to summon himself back to the field for a massive 2,600 points of damage there. Going over to Stein, he does get Demon Man or Demand Man, and he's going to use Mystic Box here, a nice little techie card. It's going to destroy the Gold and then replace it with a monster on Stein's field. So now he went from having a 2,600 threat to a 800 attack beater, but he did get the Gateway to Dark World, unfortunately for Mr. Stein, which summons any Dark World back from your graveyard. So basically he just added to his own demise there, and this is Mr. Stein's last chance to be able to do something. He gets another, or he gets his Gateway back just in case. Mr. Stein's turn with 800 left, and he draws a trap he cannot use. Round 1 goes to Brron. Round 2, after a very one-sided duel, looks like Mr. Stein has a much better hand this time. Bron's going to open up with a simple vanilla monster, 1800 Jor, Knight of Dark World, and Mr. Stein actually does open up with a Scab Scar Knight, so he's going to eat that 1800 so that he can actually steal the beat stick. And now not only will Brron have to find a way to deal with the 1800, but obviously he has no monsters to work with, so he has no way of tribute summoning if he got one of his many level 5 monsters and things like that. Which, speak of the devil, he drew one, so he's gonna go ahead and set a monster and end. Here comes Demand Knight, spell card here, but anyways, diving back into it, he did some decent damage. Cobalt's going to come out because he took damage this turn. It'll summon itself during the end phase, so now he can maybe get back Brow if that's what he wants, but he's actually going to use it to tribute summon the Silva, and which is a interesting move. He's going to attack the Scab Scar Knight on purpose to get that damage in, and right before Scab Scar Knight is going to be able to steal it, he's going to tribute the Silva to activate Deck Devastation Virus. You have to tribute a monster with 2,000 or more attack points, a dark monster, in order to activate this. And so now he gets to look at all of his opponent's hand and any face down monsters if he had any, and destroy every single monster that has 1,500 or less attack points, which is the majority of Mr. Stein's deck. He also gets to look at every card he draws for 3 turns, and you know, the virus will still activate from there. Thankfully for him, he managed to steal Yugioh before the virus went off, so he still has this nice fat 1800, and he's gonna choose not to. Oh, he lost the Mystic Tomato there. That could have searched for another Scab Scar Knife. He's gonna choose not to actually use the snow, because with Dark Scheme he could potentially throw cards away. It depends. Oh, okay, here we go. We see the Savage Coliseum here, and here comes the Dark Scheme. So basically both players can throw away 2 cards and draw 2 cards, or your opponent could throw away 1 in order to negate this effect. And you know, he's obviously not going to let the Dark World do that, so he gets to basically throw away a Mystic Box out of his hand, and Mr. Stein gets 300 every time his monsters fight while Savage Coliseum is up on the field. So here comes Gateway to the Dark World, and Silva is going to be brought back because he is obviously strong enough to deal with the Yugioh. Now Bron's going to get that quick little 300 before passing turn. That really sucked. He can't rely on any single monsters. Now he'll be able to draw a monster, but will it be too late? Dark World Lightning discards a card in your hand to destroy a face down card. He didn't know that it was a bluff because he has to have a monster on the field to even use that trap card, so he's going to be able to swing in for a fat. Oh, it doesn't. He's going to also use Grapha to really salt on this man, get rid of the field spell. Now he's going to swing in for a fat 5,000 points of damage. Brron has won the duel.